I'm asking for your name. Sir.
Yes, sir.
What is your name? Samuel what? Samuel Bateman.
Put your hands behind your
Put
back.
your hands behind your back.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
Let's not do this right now, huh?
FLDS cult prophet Samuel Bateman is back in the spotlight as a new Netflix docuseries gives us a never-before-seen look inside his secretive, polygamous group tucked away along the Arizona-Utah border. And we're learning more about the key role played by a couple on the outside risking it all to expose the disturbing reality behind Bateman's teachings, ultimately leading to his arrest. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey guys, real quick, before we move on, we have another law and crime legal alert for you. This is about Roblox. They are under fire for allegedly not taking adequate safety measures to protect children on its platform. That's right, the popular virtual universe has millions of users who are minors, yet players can customize their avatars to hide their age and gender. This is a feature that may also be available to predators with bad intentions. Look, you might not even realize the dangers that Roblox arguably poses for your child, but if your child was sexually abused or assaulted or groomed by someone they met on Roblox, you may qualify for potential compensation. Look, children may not know better, but Roblox arguably should. And our legal sponsors are seeking justice for families that are affected by this alleged gross negligence. So visit gamingadvocates.com to start your free confidential case evaluation.
Get a mentor. Pay a bunch of money if you have to, but get somebody to show you how to achieve what it is that you want in life.
Samuel Bateman painted himself as somebody much more powerful than a mentor. In fact, he became a self-proclaimed messenger of God to his 50 followers, and 20-plus wives. This was all part of a fundamentalist offshoot of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints residing in the community of Short Creek. It's a remote area across the Utah-Arizona state lines. That is until Bateman's world came crumbling down in 2022. Because through the new Netflix docuseries, Trust Me, The False Prophet, former and current members of the FLDS Church gave a first-hand perspective of Samuel Bateman's rise to power and the extreme influence he had over this congregation, leading to the horrifying allegations that landed him behind bars for decades. And a big reason this came to light was through the work of cult researcher Dr. Christine Marie and her videographer husband, I should say, Tolga Karas, the brave couple who set out on a mission to gain Bateman and his group's trust so that they could document their day-to-day life and ultimately catch Bateman's crimes right on film for the federal authorities, for the FBI. Now, there is a lot of shocking details from this investigation, this new docuseries. It adds an even more disturbing dimension to this cult saga. We're going to walk you through all of this step by step, beginning with Bateman's rise to the top within the FLDS community. So the reality is, this likely wouldn't have played out if it wasn't for the life imprisonment of FLDS leader Warren Jeffs, who was convicted in 2011 for sexually assaulting two of his purported child brides. Though it is asserted by law enforcement he had up to 78 wives, with several of them being underage girls. According to FLDS members that were included in the Netflix special, Jeff's lengthy imprisonment, that would cause a big rift in the community's structure, with Jeff's even ordering his followers to put marriage and childbirth on hold altogether, ultimately risking a population decline. So from this apparent desperate situation, there were new opportunities for leaders to emerge. And that is where Samuel Bateman comes in, because Samuel Bateman reportedly used this to his advantage. Law enforcement claimed that Bateman started to proclaim he was a prophet in 2019, that there had been some kind of spiritual transfer from Warren Jeffs. In the documentary, former FLDS members claim Bateman even told some of them Jeffs was dead. And why is that important? Because this would allow him to establish credibility without a formal blessing from Jeffs himself, and for Bateman to allow marriage and procreation to resume within the community.
Center your whole life around helping other people, and it'll help you be successful.
So according to a criminal complaint that was connected to this case, and we'll talk about the charges later on, Bateman was originally married to just one woman and had one daughter born in 2005. But that marriage dissolved after Bateman allegedly proclaimed he had a feeling or vision that he should take his own daughter as his wife. She would have been around 14 at the time. After his wife left him, he began taking on more wives, both young and old. This is according to investigators. That number would reportedly climb to more than 20 wives by the time of his arrest, with law enforcement asserting many of them were minors, mostly under the age of 15. Now, in addition to growing his own immediate polygamous family, Bateman also gained male followers in the process, and that included Moroni Johnson, Torrance Bisline, and Liddell Bisline Jr., who are brought up in the documentary. So according to law enforcement, at least one former wife and 7 of Johnson's daughters were married to Bateman, including 2 minors. Bisline Jr.'s wife and 2 of his minor daughters were also married to Bateman. We'll revisit more about those followers later on. But Christine Marie, who I mentioned earlier, emphasized in the documentary how tight-knit Bateman kept his polygamous circle. And it took her and her husband Tolga a little time, some time, to form a close enough relationship with him to gain access to this Short Creek community and ultimately permission to film it. So Christine and Tolga, they arrived in the area around 2015 to originally help with flood relief efforts, and eventually they founded a nonprofit to support victims of human trafficking called Voices for Dignity. And the couple permanently relocated to Short Creek to continue supporting FLDS members and build relationships with the community. In the documentary, Christine talks about her own story and how her life was almost taken from her when she fell into a cult. She said she felt compelled to help others get out of a very similar situation. So Christine and Tolga told law enforcement they first met Bateman around 2020. Tolga claimed that Bateman tried to be a successful businessman, but that didn't appear to work out, and his latest ventures were in real estate and goal coaching.
One of the biggest hindrances to success is excuse-itis. So any successful person, very successful person, every one of them that I've ever met or seen or talked to or read about, they have always overcome all their excuses. They do not make excuses.
Around the time they met, Bateman was being evicted from his home in Colorado City, Arizona, and according to a probable cause affidavit that was later filed against him, he appeared to be a broken man. By the end of that year, Bateman would travel to Christine and Tolga's home in a large SUV packed with women and girls, all of whom Bateman apparently introduced as his wives, the youngest being around 9 years old. It was also around the end of 2020 that complaints to law enforcement would start coming in about Liddell Bisline Jr.'s minor children and their marriages to Bateman. So law enforcement, they eventually detained Bateman over the situation, but the minor's parents said the claims were just rumors. No charges were reportedly pressed. And around that same time, a forensic interview was also conducted with the daughter that Bateman shared with his ex-wife. And in that interview, his daughter described an incident on a family trip to Canada where Bateman allegedly told her he felt like she was his wife, that if his feelings were right, he would make her have a child. The daughter also accused Bateman of expressing uncomfortable desires to hug and kiss and have sex with her over text message. And during that interview, she even claimed she saw Bateman hug and kiss one of his young wives over a video call. That so-called wife was allegedly around 10 years old. You fast forward to 2021. Christine and Tolga, they would start visiting Bateman's properties and filming what they portrayed to be a documentary about the FLDS way of life through Bateman's journey and teachings. And this footage is basically the focal point throughout the whole Netflix series. And at first, the footage captures, routine gatherings, meals, choir performances. And during these initial interactions, it appears Bateman, his wives, his followers, they share this kind of positive dynamic, at least at the very least. Everyone kind of puts on a smile. But right off the bat, Christine expressed in the Netflix film that she was concerned with the fact that the minors were married to Bateman in the first place. And the viewers came to learn that the ugly truth would reveal itself as the cameras kept on rolling. Because in November of 2021, Christine reported to law enforcement that she audio recorded a conversation with Bateman and 3 of his wives, one of whom was a minor. And on the recording, part of which was played in the docuseries, they recounted what they called the atonement ceremony. So according to the probable cause statement, the ceremony involved Bateman giving these 3 wives to his 3 male followers, Liddell Jr., Torrance, Moroni, to have sex with while Bateman watched. This would be the turning point for Christine and Tolga's journey into Bateman's polygamous world. The recordings from that conversation were handed over to law enforcement. The case was referred to federal authorities, and that is when Christine and Tolga started working with FBI Special Agent Don Martin, who also appeared in the Netflix special. And Christine and Tolga went from strictly filmmakers to FBI informants with the goal of gathering enough evidence against Bateman to get him arrested on illegal sex acts. So eventually, the documentary takes a closer look at the life of one of Bateman's followers. We're talking about Julia Johnson. This is the wife of Moroni Johnson. And she and Moroni shared 5 daughters together, including 2 minors, and all the girls were married to Bateman. So now it's July of 2022, and Julia comes forward to Christine and begins to express concern over Bateman's behavior and what she claims she had taken part in behind closed doors. As shown during this Netflix docuseries, Julia agrees to discuss her concerns on camera, ultimately worked with Christine and Tolga and the FBI on this secret operation, risking her relationship with her children, Bateman, the community as a whole. Let's go to this FBI criminal complaint because it begins with what Julia shared with Christine. Quote, Julia stated Bateman required the women and girls to confess in public in front of the other women and girls. When Julia's daughter, JD number 3, born in 2006, was 14 or 15 years old, she expressed fears of having a baby to Julia. Julia believes JD3 was concerned because Bateman was having sexual relations with her. Julia said Bateman demanded everyone to make confessions. He encouraged the confessions to be as vulgar as possible. Bateman then distributed the confessions to a group email or text. Bateman assigned corrections that he claimed the Lord had made as he chose. A correction is a punishment ranging from a short timeout, a days-long timeout, or a public shaming. He blasted the corrections out to all the family members either by group email or text. So the following month, Julie agrees to speak with Special FBI Agent Don Martin and gives an even more detailed account of the allegations involving Bateman and his followers. According to Julia, Bateman required all the women in the group to turn over any money that they made, with Julia herself admitting that she also gave him money. And Julia said her husband Moroni used his funds to provide for the girls and the babies, including food, household products, personal care items. And meanwhile, Bateman reportedly didn't have a job. She then tells the FBI agent about Bateman gradually taking Julia and Moroni's daughters to be his wives. And some of these allegations, included in the criminal complaint, as you can imagine, are terrifying. Quote, Bateman read some revelations and commanded Moroni to give him JD6, one of his daughters, with previous wife, AB, born in 2010, who would have been around 12 at the time of this interview, as Bateman's wife. Moroni expressed great anguish and was under extreme stress over having to give his youngest daughter to Bateman. Bateman took JD6 as a wife and returned to Colorado City, Arizona in May 2020. Julia believes JD6 has slept with Bateman because the other girls called Julia to see how to deal with JD6's bedwetting. MJ and SJ said Bateman was disgusted when JD6 would wet on him. Bateman also took Johnson, formerly referenced as JD2, another daughter of Moroni and Julia, born in 2003, as his wife. Johnson had a baby in 2021, 7 months after she turned 18, meaning she almost certainly conceived when she was 17. Quote, in August 2020, Bateman took JD3, born in 2006, as his wife, who at the time of this interview would have been around 16. JD3 was expecting to be taken by Bateman, but did not want to go with him. JD3 is also a daughter of Moroni and Julia. After Bateman took JD3, he took JD5, a daughter of Moroni with AB, born in 2007, who would have been around 15 at the time of this interview. Bateman next took JD4, born in 2009, the last daughter of Moroni and Julia. JD4 would have been around 13 at the time of this interview. JD4 went silent after Bateman took her as a wife. Julia tried to comfort JD4 and said she could tell Bateman she didn't want to be with him. Julia allowed JD4 to sleep in the room with Julia, but Bateman made JD4 sleep in his room with him and rebuked Julia for hindering JD4 from her godly duties. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm actually physically disgusted at this as I'm reading it. This is one of the hardest things I've read in quite some time. But from this point on, the allegations from Julia just get worse because there is court paperwork that was filed against Bateman, and it gives us even more details about some of the alleged misconduct by Bateman and his followers that the documentary didn't necessarily dig into. And I'm going to warn you, it is not easy to listen to, okay? Quote, while in Lincoln, Nebraska, Bateman directed Moroni to call Julia and have her bring BB and MJ to a local motel. BB, Barlow, AB2, and JD7, born in 2008 and would have been around 14 at the time of this interview, are all sisters. MG is the adult daughter of Moroni and has a baby with Bateman. Bateman and Moroni were lying naked on the two beds. Bateman had the three ladies take off their clothes and join the men. Bateman talked about Father Adam and Mother Eve and how in heaven people watch them engage in sexual acts. Bateman had Moroni and Julia have sex in front of BB and MJ, Moroni and Julia's daughter, to teach them how to better pleasure Bateman. Another allegation from Julia is that Bateman allegedly gave one of Moroni's wives to Liddell Jr. in order to sexually comfort him over the fact his own wife married Bateman. Now, before that, Bateman allegedly sent two of Julia Moroni's minor daughters to sexually comfort Liddell Jr. Here's another sexual allegation mentioned by Julia that involved a motel in late 2020. Quote, Bateman decided he needed to complete the Binding of Brothers Act. At Bateman's direction, the following people went to a motel room. Bateman, BB, Barlow, both minors, Moroni and Julia's daughters, MJ and Johnson, a minor at the time, Moroni, Julia, ZB, Liddell Jr., and GB, who is now Liddell Jr.'s wife. Julia described everyone was naked. Bateman brought wine and drank it despite the FLDS religion not condoning the consumption of alcohol. The rest of that encounter is just way too graphic to even describe, but it goes on to basically say that Bateman's wives, including several minors, engaged in sex acts with him and later shared a bed with Bateman that same night. Now, the criminal complaint continues with Julia telling the FBI about alleged statements Bateman made to her, including this one. Quote, Bateman told Julia he had Torrance, one of his adult male followers with JD7, born in 2008, so she would have been around 14 at the time of the interview, and Torrance performed sexual acts on her. Bateman also had Moroni be with LB2, also a minor, sexually, and Liddell Jr. with Bisline, formerly referenced as NB. Bateman said he watched these sexual acts. Bateman made the men do these sexual acts as an atonement for their wicked deeds. Julia knew this incident was referred to as the atonement. Now, in addition to sex acts in large groups, Julia described other lewd behavior she reportedly observed within this community. Quote, Julia learned that Bateman required the women and girls to remove their traditional long underwear worn to protect their bodies and virtue after they engaged in sexual acts with or in front of Bateman. Bateman said since they were now of purity and obedience, they did not need the protection of long underwear. Julia did the laundry in the house, and all the girls had gotten rid of their long underwear, including the girls under the age of 15. The girls started wearing red, lacy underpants. Julia has witnessed Bateman, when the girls would ride in the front seat of the vehicle, reach over and touch their breasts. Specifically, Bateman touched the breasts of her daughter, JD4, born in 2009, so would have been around 13 at the time of the interview. Bateman would also reach over and touch the girls on their thighs. The girls were also required to touch Bateman. And now we know eventually on August 28, 2022, Bateman was arrested by the Arizona Department of Public Safety for child endangerment. The whole incident was caught on police body cam footage. This was also walked through during the Netflix special. And this particular incident stemmed from people spotting a set of hands atop of the doors of a box trailer that was hitched to the back of Bateman's vehicle. Officers later learned at least 3 minor girls were riding unsecured in the trailer.
Come over here, please. I'm going to get that knife off you, sir, okay?
Yeah.
Any other weapons on you?
No.
Okay. Come over here, please. Nothing else on you? Phones? Stop reaching your pockets. What's your name,
What's
sir?
that? What's that?
What's your name, sir?
Samuel.
Samuel?
No, what are you saying about pockets?
Do you have any other weapons on you?
Phone.
Please don't reach in your pockets. Just let me... We're out here because there is supposed to be people back there.
How many other people in the truck? How many other people are in the truck?
Any information I give can and will be held against you.
Well, I just want to know who's inside the truck right now, so that way I know who else we're dealing with here. Or else I'm going to call everybody out.
As you can see, it's a pretty serious deal here, sir. What is your name?
Samuel.
Samuel what?
Do I have to tell you my name?
I'm asking for your name.
Yeah, I don't have to tell you, right?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
what is your name?
Samuel.
Samuel what?
Is he the driver?
Yeah.
Okay, you have to identify yourself. You understand that, right?
I don't know. I'm just wondering. Yeah, Samuel Bateman.
Samuel Bateman. I don't understand. What are you doing? We're trying to make
Samuel,
sure people...
I just got here. Explain to me what's going on.
Calm down.
I'm fine.
You're being videoed. Just in case you're...
Yeah, that's
No,
fine.
You're being videoed as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stuff.
Stuff? Samuel Bateman, what's your date of birth? Let's run him.
What is your date of birth, sir?
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Put
Turn
your
off
hands
on
behind your back. Put your hands behind your
Put
back.
your hands behind your back.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
Let's not do this right now, huh?
You are being detained until you identify yourself.
Do I have to tell my name?
Yes, you have to identify yourself. You are being detained for a crime.
Samuel Bateman.
We're still putting you in handcuffs, so just sit tight.
This is the police! We're gonna be opening the door! I want your hands empty and above your head! If you do not, you will suffer the consequences! Again, this is the police!
Pull down the handle.
Where are the hands? Let's see the hands!
Let's get that other door open.
There was hands sticking out of the top of the trailer! There's hands sticking out of the top of the trailer earlier, let's see them! Let's see your hands! They're in the front.
Behind the curtain.
Okay, keep your hands up for me. Go and walk out towards me, okay? Try not to slip, all right? Just keep walking. Is there anybody else inside the trailer? No? Perfect. Thank you, guys. Just head back there with your siblings, okay? You're okay. Go and head back there with them, okay? Thank you so much.
How old are you? 14. 14. How old are you? 11. How old are you? 12. You? How old are you?
Where you guys from, Sam?
I think you know, but
I don't know.
Arizona.
Okay.
I'll just tell you right now, I'm not going to say anything.
Okay. Go ahead, have a seat.
Inside the trailer, first responders find a sofa, some camping chairs, a makeshift toilet. And while Bateman was in jail, law enforcement said he tried to get his followers to delete his Signal account, the mobile messenger app that he used to communicate with his wives and followers. And at the time, law enforcement took his phone away from him. So Bateman actually was bailed out a few days later on September 1st. And in the Netflix documentary, you see that Christine and Tolga actually picked him up from the jail. During the recorded car ride, remember they're working with law enforcement, Bateman asked Tolga how he could factory reset his cell phone at home or through the phone's providers. And according to official filings, this acted as proof that he was trying to tamper with evidence. And he was indicted on related charges 5 days later. The biggest moment in the Netflix documentary came when Christine and Tolga developed a plan to help the FBI raid the Short Creek community. They convinced Bateman to participate in a one-on-one interview about his spiritual journey for the documentary at a separate studio, keeping him and his wives away from the properties. And on the second day of those interviews, September 13, 2022, the FBI conducts this raid. And the moment they went to arrest Bateman was also caught on film. Following day, 9 minor females were taken into child protective custody. They were forensically interviewed, and they were placed in group homes pending dependency proceedings. And the criminal complaint said that at first the girls didn't disclose Bateman's sexual abuse, though at least one of them did apparently admit to being present and partially nude for one of the sexual orgies that we previously mentioned. But eventually, in November of 2022, investigators received a tip that one of the minors did disclose sexual abuse by Bateman while in the group home. The detective also mentioned she sees journals during the search warrants detailing some of the girls sleeping with Bateman, kissing him, touching him. And during the Netflix special, it is also revealed 8 of the 9 minor children ran away from the group homes on November 27, 2022, with the orchestrated help of Bateman and several adult wives. 4 days later, the minors were found in a vehicle driven by one of Bateman's adult wives in Spokane, Washington. 7 of Bateman's adult wives were convicted of crimes including coercing children into sexual activity and interfering with the investigation into Bateman. All 3 male followers, Moroni Johnson, Torrance Bislane, and Liddell Bislane Jr., they were convicted and sentenced to decades in prison for their own child sex crimes in connection to Bateman's operation.
When you make a mistake, just own up to it. Say, yeah, hey, I made a mistake. Sorry about that.
One of Bateman's most devout wives, who was also included in the documentary, Naomi Bislane, also served prison time, but has since been released and has left the FLDS Church.
Hi everyone, I'm Noams from the documentary Trust Me, the False Prophet on Netflix. I wanted to come on here and thank you all so much for the support I've been receiving. I didn't expect it to be this much, but thank you. It means a lot to me.
And as for Bateman, he pleaded guilty to federal charges of conspiracy to commit transportation of a minor for criminal sexual activity and conspiracy to commit kidnapping on April 1st, 2024, and he was sentenced to 50 years in prison, followed by a lifetime of supervised release. Christine Marie shared a video on TikTok responding to this Netflix special, now, by the way, in the top 10 shows in the U.S.
I want to give a heartfelt shout out to everybody who has reached out in love and kindness, and for all your support, for the entire world that is watching this docuseries, Trust Me, the False Prophet, and responding with love and empathy, particularly for the people that are in the series, including those who have not yet walked away from the false prophet. It's incredible, the lack of victim shaming and the outpouring of support for everybody. I'm just overwhelmed, and I just can't thank you enough.
And Christine and Tolga say they plan to continue their work within the FLDS community. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you next time, everybody.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me, I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No, you're going to answer the question the way I asked it.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people.
Congressional chaos, with Attorney General Pam Bondi testifying on Capitol Hill about the Jeffrey Epstein saga, and with the redactions and the unredactions from these past few days, we got to ask, is the DOJ, the Department of Justice, hiding something regarding Epstein? Let's discuss. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Is the DOJ hiding something about Jeffrey Epstein? It's a fair question. It's a fair question I can ask. I can't tell you definitively, but it's a fair question to ask, because what did we see the past few days? What was on display the past few days, particularly yesterday? Optics-wise, it doesn't look right. See, here's the thing. And I did a whole sidebar on this. According to the newly released Epstein files, pursuant to the Epstein Files Transparency Act, where the DOJ had to release all of the Epstein files in their possession, there are internal memos and case summaries with the feds where they suggest there is evidence that Epstein ran a sex trafficking network of girls to high-profile, powerful men. I'll give you an example. There was an email to then Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, March 20th, 2025. The case agents and AUSAs, Assistant United States Attorneys, these are the prosecutors, ensured that all videos and images from the case file and from Epstein's residences and devices were reviewed for evidence of a crime. Those reviews revealed no evidence from any of the searches we conducted or any of the files we reviewed that any videos or other images exist of any victims in this case being sexually abused. Nor did those reviews reveal any evidence that anyone other than Epstein and Maxwell participated in the sexual abuse of victims in this case. This is referring to Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted of her own sex trafficking charges and sentenced to 20 years in prison. We are aware of the theory circulated in the media and online that Epstein video recorded the abuse of his victims, including by other men, but we have found no evidence to support that theory. Indeed, had we found such videos, we certainly would have used them as evidence in the criminal cases we investigated and prosecuted and would have pursued any leads they generated. We did not, however, locate any such videos. And then you have this other message that says the FBI's Violent Crime Section, so the Crimes Against Children and Human Trafficking Unit, the CACHTU, spoke to the case agent and confirmed no client list existed, meaning that Jeffrey Epstein had this list of all the people that he trafficked these girls to, right? This incriminating, maybe blackmail list of celebrities and politicians and high-profile people. Now, why am I saying that? It may be hard for people to believe this. Totally fair that Epstein didn't traffic girls to other people. I mean, it just came out that Epstein ordered one of his aides to get secret cameras at his Palm Beach, Florida home in a 2014 email writing, "Let's get 3 motion-detected hidden cameras that record." So people might not accept this. Totally fair. But just putting that to the side, maybe this is the case. Maybe there isn't a client list. Maybe there isn't definitive proof of other men abusing girls. Look, I'm an attorney. I get that one statement, one narrative is not enough. Suggestion is not enough. You need more evidence to make a criminal case to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone committed a crime. Maybe a mere association with Epstein, maybe just weird emails or communications. Maybe it's not enough to prosecute. Okay, I get it, and I can understand that. The problem is, to me, there is an argument that what the Department of Justice has been doing and how they have been redacting, unredacting materials is just adding fuel to the fire that there is a cover-up. And yes, I'm going to get into what Pam Bondi testified to yesterday in what was just an absolute throwdown on Capitol Hill. But first, as I mentioned, lawmakers are now able to review unredacted Epstein files at the DOJ during the week, Monday through Friday. And what does Representative Ro Khanna do? He goes to the House floor the other day and reveals the names of 6 men that had been blacked out.
In fact, there were 6 wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid for no apparent reason. When Congressman Massey and I pointed this out to the Department of Justice, they acknowledged their mistake, and now they have revealed the identity of these 6 powerful men. These men are Salvatore Navora, Zorab Mikoladze, Leopig Leonor, Nicola Caputa, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of Dubai Ports World, and billionaire businessman Leslie Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI. Now, my question is, why did it take Thomas Massey and me going to the Justice Department to get these 6 men's identities to become public?
Why were they redacted? I don't know. It's unclear, especially since Les Wexner, the guy behind Victoria's Secret, was already a known Epstein associate. Epstein had allegedly been, managing his finances. And even though he has denied allegations of wrongdoing, why was his name redacted with these other people? All right, before we go any further, I got to give a shout out to our partner, CyberGhost VPN. Look, have you ever kind of hesitated to connect to public Wi-Fi, like in a restaurant, airport, school? Because You're afraid someone might be stealing your information? Totally valid. The truth is, eyes are watching you every time you go online. The good news is, there's a solution. CyberGhost VPN. You select one of their hundreds of locations before you browse, and they'll encrypt everything through their secure server. So this way, no one can track your online activity. It works on up to 7 devices at once, so you can share with family and friends. And with just a couple clicks, CyberGhost unlocks exclusive geo-restricted content from over 40 major streamers like Netflix and Prime. And with over 38 million users worldwide and a nearly perfect rating on Trustpilot, CyberGhost is one of the most recommended VPNs out there. And look, if you're still not sure, there's a 45-day money-back guarantee, 84% discount plus 4 months free with the link in my description. So that's just $2.03 a month to protect your privacy and enjoy unlimited content. Don't wait. Click the link in the description. Start browsing safely with CyberGhost VPN. Stay private, stay secure, unlock global content. Get CyberGhost VPN now with 84% off plus 4 months free, risk-free with a 45-day money-back guarantee. Just click the link in the description and start protecting your digital life today. Here's the thing. The DOJ was only supposed to redact and withhold information on a very limited basis under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, the law. It says the Attorney General may withhold or redact the segregable portions of records that contain personally identifiable information of victims, depict or contain child sexual abuse materials, would jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution, provided that such withholding is narrowly tailored and temporary, depict or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury of any person, or contain information specifically authorized under criteria established by an executive order to be kept in secret in the interest of national defense or foreign policy. Mere embarrassment of somebody, it's not enough. That's not enough to redact somebody's name. So why were certain individuals' names redacted? Why was certain information withheld, like these men's names? How thorough was the DOJ, the FBI, in preparing this material before it was released, right? These are fair questions. Optically, there's a separate question between, hey, look, we went through everything. There was no one else to look at. There was no one else to prosecute. Okay, why does it look like a cover-up? When, as I said, maybe that's not even the case. And there are legitimate reasons to redact information or not charge someone. Okay, here's the problem. Attorney General Pam Bondi testified yesterday in front of the House Judiciary Committee. And by the way, this has been an overall bipartisan effort. You got both sides here who want to get more information on the Epstein saga and understand why no one else was prosecuted. So here's a good example, okay, because I'm going to play you clips of this. In the spirit of what I just said, listen to Republican Thomas Massie call out Pam Bondi over the redactions.
The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators, Fully Redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your your deputy attorney general said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files. But he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking, not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking. And then finally, what we have here is the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need that you're holding on to and over-redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI. Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times.
Yeah, I already told you that. This is where he's listed as a co-conspirator.
Can I finish my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. Within 40 minutes, you asked me a question. Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
There was one redaction out of over 4,700, and we invited you in. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome.
I mean, yeah, look, at the very least, the feds could have work product showing they were considering charges or that they were investigating someone, chose not to move forward for whatever reason. That's understandable. Although it can be debated about why they didn't move forward, but prosecutors always have a number of reasons, for example, to not pursue a case against someone given the weight of the evidence. And yes, it's unusual that we're even seeing these internal memos and case summaries, the internal workings like this. But come on, this is an unusual case. But to redact it? Why was it initially redacted? To redact all this, does it fit into one of those categories I mentioned before? I don't know. Especially when I get to what they didn't react. That is going to get you angry. That is going to get your blood boiling. I'll get to that in a minute. But Bondi going up there and making it political and making statements that I will say I have never heard an attorney general say during a hearing on Capitol Hill before, it makes it look suspicious. The argument is people will look at this and say she's diverting attention, right? She's being defensive. She's being overly aggressive. Take a look.
Reclaiming my time. The time belongs.
I think it's very interesting.
Reclaiming my time.
I think it's very interesting.
You can reclaim your time.
He talks about they indicted. The president said they indicted him twice.
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock and restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these
Committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from New York. We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when you ask a question, the witness gets to answer. You may not like the answer, but she gets to answer.
The question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like the answer, Chairman,
my time.
Because it's honest. So he asked a 4-minute question.
Restore 45 seconds, Mr. Nadler, please, Mr. Chairman.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer.
And the question is, why is she doing this? I mean, she called Representative Jamie Raskin a washed-up lawyer. So why is she doing this? Why not just say, hey, listen, we looked at everything. I understand your concerns. There's nothing else here. She did it a little bit. But by diverting attention, bringing up other subjects, being defensive, this is what's going to just raise people's suspicions. Let me get back to this part, okay? This is Representative Jerry Nadler. He has just one question.
So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the question the way I asked it.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people. You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it. You know, all they want to do, all the American people need to know this. They are talking about Epstein today. This has been around since the Obama administration. This administration released over 3 million pages of documents, over 3 million. And Donald Trump signed that law to release all of those documents. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. And none of them ask Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
Committee will be in order.
Yes, look, all important things for the economy. But she's the Attorney General. Why is the Attorney General talking about that during the Epstein conversation, right? And arguably not directly answering the question. What about this, okay? You had Representative Ted Lieu on Prince Andrew, big figure in this case. Things go off the rails because it's about whether Prince Andrew, maybe I should say former Prince Andrew, should have been prosecuted.
I'm going to show you 2 photos of former Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew attended various parties with Jeffrey Epstein. Under the law Congress passed, you were allowed to redact photos to protect the victims of Epstein's sex trafficking operation. You redacted the photos of this victim's face because you were following the congressional law. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, that we redacted the victim's
Because you were
face?
following the congressional law, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You have now established that please put the photos back up, that we are looking at a sex trafficking victim. Under the Federal Victims Trafficking Protection Act, not only is Jeffrey Epstein guilty, but anyone who patronizes Epstein's sex operation is also guilty of a crime. That's why I find it absolutely despicable that you sought to protect Epstein's clients, like former Prince Andrew. Last July, you closed the case on Epstein's abusers. The July 2025 memo from your Department of Justice stated, quote, "We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties." These two photos, please put the photos back up. These two photos staring you in the face are evidence of a crime and more than enough evidence to predicate an investigation against former Prince Andrew. So I ask you, Attorney General Pam Bondi, why did you shut down this investigation last July, and why have you not prosecuted former Prince Andrew?
I don't believe you asked Merrick Garland these questions when he was Attorney General and set before.
I agree with you.
You twice.
I'm reclaiming my time. I agree with you. I agree with you. During the Biden administration, I called for people looking at Epstein files. Merrick Garland dropped the ball, as did Attorney General Bill Barr, as did Alex Acosta, a whole string of failures, but you are in charge. You have the power to change things, to hold these men accountable, and you're doing the opposite. You're protecting them. So I want to move on to another man.
Can I answer
Donald
that,
Trump.
though?
I want to move on to another question.
Can I answer your question about protecting?
You answered the question.
You're saying no. I love this.
I want to discuss another man, Donald Trump, who is all over the Epstein files, like former Prince. Here's the video. Like former Prince Andrew, Donald Trump attended various parties with Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
This is so ridiculous, and that they are trying to deflect from all the great things Donald Trump has done. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent presidency. He's the one that asked that those files
I'm reclaiming my time.
be released.
I got your answer. You said there's no evidence.
Trump asked
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock.
Stop
the clock.
The legislation. This is ridiculous.
Time belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay. I'm going to put up another document from a witness who called the FBI's National Threat Operations Center, because I believe you just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath, and this is all on videotape. You said there's no evidence of a crime. I'm showing you, here is a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center. He drove Donald Trump around in a limo. He overheard what Donald Trump said to Jeffrey on his cell phone. He was so angry, he was going to stop the limo and hurt Donald Trump. And he met a girl who said she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She later had her head blown off, and officers at the scene said that could not have been suicide. No one at the Department of Justice interviewed this witness. You need to interview this witness immediately. Epstein should rot in hell, so should the men who patronized his operation. And as we sit here today, there are over 1,000 sex trafficking victims, and you have not held a single man accountable. Shame on you. If you had any decency, you would resign right after this hearing concludes.
The gentleman has expired.
May I respond?
Yeah, I don't know how you respond. No one can.
I did not ask a question.
You're allowed to.
I did not ask a question.
Crime in California. He does not want to talk about
I did not ask a
crime
question.
in his
She
state.
can't just
Madam
add
Attorney
lib
General.
stuff. I did not ask a question.
Committee will be in order. The gentleman has yielded back his time. I think our next witness will be more than happy to let the Attorney General.
Madam Attorney General, would you like to?
Gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 5 minutes.
Now, look, we did a whole episode on Sidebar about the Royals' connection to Epstein, including what's happened recently. It's up on Law and Crime's YouTube page if you want to check it out. But it's not clear why he wasn't prosecuted. And you heard the deflection a bit on the president, right? It's an interesting thing about the idea of the Trump cover-up, because one of the documents that was released at one point in this files release, and which we all saw, was a list compiled by the FBI of unverified tips that came in from the FBI's National Threat Operations Center. And apparently this was sent over the Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force. So we all saw this. Now, again, these were tips that apparently couldn't be corroborated. So you're even talking about secondhand information. But there were allegations that we all saw that Trump allegedly engaged in child abuse. Again, not substantiated, but it was in there. It was released. And to give you a better idea about that, we had Representative Henry Johnson from Georgia, who wanted clarification on how many employees were allegedly charged with scrubbing President Trump's name from the files.
General Bondi, it's been reported that there were at one point 1,000 personnel assigned to the task of identifying and scrubbing Donald Trump's name from the Epstein files. Were those reports accurate?
I believe his name has appeared countless times in the documents
how many
that have
people were
been released.
assigned?
If I could finish, I'm going to read you the stats.
I just simply asked whether or not it was true that it was 1,000 folks who were assigned that task. Were those reports accurate?
There are more than 500 attorneys and reviewers. I cannot give you an exact number.
And I wanted to ask you about that also, because this is a different question that you're getting to now. There were 500 DOJ lawyers and others assigned the task of redacting the appropriate information, including identities of the Epstein victim survivors from the Epstein files prior to their release. 500, is that correct?
If I could have finished my answer, there were more than 500 attorneys and reviewers who assisted with the. They asked the question and they don't want an answer.
That answers my question, ma'am, and I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on.
From multiple districts.
Would you agree?
This is ridiculous.
The time belongs to the gentleman from Georgia.
By the way, Representative Jasmine Crockett just dove into this more.
Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter. So let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contains more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her. Here's another example. This shows notes from FBI investigators that describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump, where he bragged to Trump that, quote, "This is a good one." Now, I'm not saying that the president is a pedophile, but there is a lot of evidence in these files that suggests that he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles. What's crazy about all of this is just that this is a big cover-up.
One thing I got to mention is the idea of how thorough this investigation was at the federal level, why the redactions were made and not made, and whether the DOJ made an attempt to hear from the survivors. Because first, as to protecting the victims, the survivors, going back to Massey, listen to this.
To my right is an email that was sent by the victims' lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact. A list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. And then you had Representative Pramila Jayapal of Washington, who questioned AG Bondi about not only the names being released, but something else coming out too, And at one point, she asks the survivors who were in that room to stand up and for Bondi to address them. And this is when things get pretty tense.
Along with numerous files that disclose not only the names, the emails, and the addresses of survivors, but also nude photographs and even the identities of Jane Does who had been protected for decades until your department released their names. Survivors are now telling us that their families are finding out for the first time that they were trafficked by Epstein. In their words, quote, "This release does not provide closure. It feels like a deliberate attempt to intimidate survivors, punish those who came forward, and reinforce the same culture of secrecy that allowed Epstein's crimes to continue for decades." To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Attorney General Bondi, you apologized to the survivors in your opening statement for what they went through at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information?
Congresswoman, you sat before, Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General Bondi,
No, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you a specific question that I would like you to answer, which is, will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
that's
respond.
Not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't like the answer. So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't she ask Merrick Garland this?
I'm reclaiming my time, and when I reclaim my time, it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady has reclaimed her time.
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
Now, AG Bondi did try to address that a bit when she was questioned by Representative Lou Correa.
And as I said before, to any victims, we ask them to come forward to our office, and we want to work with them. I have never not worked with a victim, and I believe I've actually spoken to several of the
Madam, if I can reclaim my time, I only have a minute.
Behind me.
If I can reclaim my time, I just think we start out by making sure those redactions are unredacted, those Epstein files, to make sure that the public, according to the law, following the law, that those names in those files are made public. We have to make sure we tell those predators there is no place for them to hide, and if they commit the crime, they're going to fry for it. It starts with showing us the names of the perpetrators in the Epstein files.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
Okay. So, if any man's name was redacted that should not have been, we will, of course, unredact it. If a victim's name was unredacted, please bring it to us and we will redact it. We were given 30 days to review and redact and unredact millions of pages of documents. Our error rate is very low,
The
but there are
victims are
always
right behind you. We've got to convince them that we're doing a good job
everything
of
we can to help
protecting
the
them.
victims. We will
Thank
do
you,
everything we can.
And look, giving her the benefit of the doubt, yeah, maybe that's the case. Maybe mistakes were made. Given the time frame to produce all this, sure. But you can see why people would look at this and say, what? Really? And when it comes to people possibly being indicted, she had made the claim that there are pending investigations at the Department of Justice. And like I said before, that could be one of the criteria to not produce material or redact material. You don't want to jeopardize an ongoing investigation. She didn't really provide a lot more details on that. It's unclear if she is referring to the work that's being done at the Southern District of New York, because Bondi was selected to oversee an investigation there. Jay Clayton may be being a part of that. I also have to mention this. You know what's complicating all this? Is that Congress didn't get the privilege log from the DOJ. They were required to turn over a log explaining all the redactions. That was part of the Epstein Transparency Act. It was in the law. They actually were supposed to provide this log 15 days after the January 30th release of the documents. And by all accounts, at least at the time of this recording, I don't think that's been provided yet. So it complicates the explanation of why certain things were redacted. And in terms of when we're going to get more answers, maybe from members of Congress, here's the problem. You had a California representative say that she went to the DOJ to look at the unredacted files. It's almost impossible. There are not enough computers. This is going to take some time. This is Representative Zoe Lofgren.
I did go over to the Department of Justice yesterday. I would note that 400 and all our 35 members are in the House, and there's 4 computers. So it would take many months to actually have the time. I only had a few hours. I think the transparency argument is really kind of a sham, because it's not really possible.
Whoa. Did you have to wait to get a computer?
It is not possible to really go in.
Yeah, problem. I don't know if something will change there, but this could take quite some time. So I don't have an answer as to whether or not certain things are being hidden. I don't know if it's a mistake. I don't know if there's ongoing investigations. I don't know if this was a situation where they were kind of rushing things out, or there's something nefarious going on, or it's just a case of, look, we looked at everything and there's not much more there. I don't know, but we will see. I think these hearings are important. I think these Congress people going in and looking at the unredacted files is important. We're all looking for transparency here, and I know a lot of the survivors are looking for justice. And just to be clear, I'll say it one more time, just because someone's name is mentioned in the Epstein files in some capacity doesn't mean that they committed a crime, that they were implicated in a crime, or even had knowledge of a crime. But obviously you can see why there are a lot of questions about this. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for taking the time. As always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, we're up on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, I got my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern. See you next time, everybody. A Hollywood legal war that lasted nearly 2 years. A movie about domestic violence, accusations of sexual harassment, a secret smear campaign, text messages that appeared to drag Taylor Swift into all this mess. And then just 2 weeks before trial, it ends. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, real quick, I got to tell you about this sponsor, this app that I think you're going to love. It is called Upside. So Upside gets you cash back, extra cash back on everyday purchases like gas, groceries, takeout. Here's what you do. You download Upside for free. You claim an offer at one of their 100,000 plus locations. You pay like normal with your card. You verify the purchase, and just like that, money back. So say I need to get gas or I want to take out one night, I'll search for Upside offers first. And after I spend, money appears in my app that I can transfer right into my bank account. And Upside's frequent users earn an average of $254 back a year. So to start getting your cash back, click the link in the description or scan the QR code. Make sure to use promo code SIDEBAR because you'll get an extra 25 cents bonus on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, we know they co-starred in the 2024 film It Ends With Us. He was also the director, she was also the star, and according to court filings, Lively accused Baldoni of sexually harassing her on that set. She claimed he made degrading comments, improvised unwanted physical contact, created an environment she described in a text message to a friend, quote, "They're just being creeps, like keep your hormones to yourself." She also accused his production company, Wayfarer Studios, of launching a coordinated smear campaign against her using crisis PR professionals and social media manipulation to destroy her reputation. In December 2024, according to the New York Times, Lively filed a complaint with the California Civil Rights Department, and then this all matured into an official federal lawsuit. Now, Baldoni not only denied everything, but the court filings show he had said Lively was the one who stole the film from him, threatened not to promote it, and then tried to bury him with false allegations, that she weaponized fake allegations against him. So he fought back. Baldoni filed his own lawsuit. He claimed defamation against Lively. By the way, went after her husband, Ryan Reynolds, their publicist. He also sued the New York Times over an article that was titled, "We Can Bury Anyone Inside a Hollywood Smear Machine." But according to filings that we reviewed, a judge dismissed Baldoni's lawsuits, ruling that Lively and the Times were essentially protected. They were protected by legal privileges. So the Times turned around, sued Baldoni's company, Wayfarer Studios, seeking damages for attorney's costs, citing state anti-SLAPP laws. That case actually appears to be ongoing. But basically what we're talking about, this feud, this fight between Baldoni and Lively, it kept going for 18 months. According to page 6, the two sides spent a combined $60 million on legal fees. And then in April of 2026, according to the New York Times, this was big, a federal judge threw out Lively's sexual harassment claims, ruling that she was an independent contractor, not an employee, so essentially those laws maybe didn't apply to her. The judge did let her retaliation and breach of contract claims move forward to trial, but it was mostly against the production company and not really Baldoni. That trial was now scheduled for May 18th. We plan to cover it here on Sidebar. But then what happens? May 4th, 14 days, 2 weeks before opening statements, before jury selection, they settled. They settled. Now, we received this joint statement of the parties in the Lively v. Wayfarer Studios matters, and it was sent on behalf of the attorneys. So Brian Friedman, Ellen Garofalo, Michael Gottlieb, Ezra Hudson, and this is what it says. The parties in the Blake Lively and Wayfarer Studios litigation have reached an agreement to resolve the matters and issue the following joint statement. The end product, the movie It Ends With Us, is a source of pride to all of us who work to bring it to life. Raising awareness and making a meaningful impact on the lives of domestic violence survivors, because that's what the movie was about, and all survivors is a goal that we stand behind. We acknowledge the process presented challenges and recognize concerns raised by Miss Lively deserve to be heard. We remain firmly committed to workplaces free of improprieties and unproductive environments. It is our sincere hope that this brings closure and allows all involved to move forward constructively and in peace, including a respectful environment online. I want to talk about what that statement means. Now, to be clear, we don't know the terms of this settlement. It's not disclosed. Usually it's not disclosed. There's no blatant admission of wrongdoing. But according to page 6, industry executives are kind of split on whether either star can recover. One female studio executive told them, quote, Justin doesn't have enough value in the market to overcome the suspicion that he may have created an unsafe set. I'm not sure he could cast a movie right now. Blake will have to take a break and take a cut on her first paycheck, but she's still a movie star. So what actually happened on that set? Who was telling the truth? Why did they settle now? Why did this case, which almost seemed like it could develop into something like Depp v. Heard, and where you think that both sides have to take it to trial to tell their version of events, right? Why did it end in a settlement? Why did it end in this joint statement instead of a verdict? And in just a little bit, we're going to have on former federal prosecutor and LA attorney Nima Rahmani to walk us through what he thinks happened here. Tell us about the power, publicity, the law in Hollywood, why he thinks this happened. But first, let me just set the scene. Let me give the context. So the movie It Ends With Us started filming in 2023. Blake Lively played the lead, Lily Bloom. Justin Baldoni directed and also co-starred as her on-screen love interest in the film. And according to court filings, things went wrong almost immediately. Now, we have to be careful here because there are two very different versions of what happened based on the court filings. Both sides put them in legal filings under oath. So first, Blake Lively's version. From her amended complaint that was filed February 18, 2025, according to the document, Lively claimed that from the first week of filming, Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath, so the CEO of his production company, Wayfarer Studios, made her feel uncomfortable. She claims that Baldoni spoke about his pornography addiction, that he shared details about his sex life. According to her complaint, Baldoni announced in front of crew members that she had never watched pornography. She claims that during a slow dance scene, Baldoni, and here I'm going to read directly from the document, repeatedly leaned in toward Miss Lively, attempting to kiss her, kissing her forehead, rubbing his face and mouth against her neck, putting his thumb to her mouth and flicking her lower lip, caressing her and telling her how good she smells. None of this took place while Mr. Baldoni was in character as Ryle because both the intimacy and dialogue departed from what had been agreed to in the script. She also claimed that Heath stared at her bare breasts while she was topless in her makeup trailer. According to the complaint, Heath arrived unannounced while she was having body makeup removed. She asked him to keep his back turned, but during the conversation, and this is from the document, Miss Lively noticed that Mr. Heath was staring directly at her while she was topless. When she called him out, Mr. Heath brushed it off as a habit of wanting to look at a person while speaking to them. According to her complaint, she texted a friend on May 24, 2023, quote, "I was going to invite you to set tomorrow. These people, whoa, it's like HR nuts today. The both of them. I wasn't expecting that turn. I mean, it's been present, but today I came home and cried." Later on in that same exchange, quote, "Creeps, like keep your hormones to yourselves. This is not mine. I don't want it. I don't want you gaze or words or tongue or videos of your naked wife. Yeah, it's shocking. Clowns." And she says she reported her concerns to Sony. Another female cast member also allegedly reported concerns about Baldoni's behavior. And according to the complaint, on June 1st, 2023, Baldoni acknowledged those concerns in writing, saying he had been, quote, "made aware," and that adjustments will be made. Now, she says nothing meaningful was ever done to fix this. So when production shut down due to strikes, she refused to return unless certain protections were put in place. November 9th, 2023, her lawyers sent a document called Protections for Return to Production, and it was a 17-point list of demands, and among them, an intimacy coordinator present at all times, no spontaneous improvising of intimate scenes, no discussions of personal sexual experiences, no one entering her trailer while she was undressed, and this is from the document, "There shall be no retaliation of any kind against Miss Lively for raising concerns." Wayfair responded. According to the complaint, they wrote back saying, "We find most of them not only reasonable, but also essential for the benefit of all parties involved." And on January 4th, 2024, there was a meeting that was held in New York. And according to Lively's complaint, she read aloud a list of 20 specific incidents. And she claims, quote, "neither Mr. Baldoni nor Mr. Heath denied the veracity of Miss Lively's examples." So the production resumed, the movie was finished, but according to Lively's complaint, that's when the retaliation began. She claims Baldoni hired a crisis PR team, Melissa Nathan, the agency Group PR, and according to the complaint, Nathan's proposal included, and again, I'm reading this from the document, full Reddit, full social account takedowns, full social crisis team on hand for anything, engage with audiences in the right way, start threads of theories. And this is key, quote, "all of this will be most importantly untraceable." There was a document apparently called Scenario Planning. This apparently was circulated. According to the complaint, it proposed planning stories about Blake Lively having a, quote, "less than favorable reputation in the industry," and to, quote, "explore planting stories about the weaponization of feminism." So according to text messages that were embedded in the complaint, when Baldoni worried the plan wasn't aggressive enough, I mean, that was the allegation, his publicist, Jennifer Abel, apparently told Melissa Nathan that Baldoni, quote, "wants to feel like she can be buried." And this is from the document, "you know we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him." So Lively says that they brought in a contractor named Jed Wallace to essentially run this digital campaign against her. And according to the complaint, on August 10, 2024, a TAG employee reported that they had, quote, "started to see a shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative against Lively." She claims that campaign worked. Negative stories surged. Her businesses were flooded with hateful comments. According to the complaint, her hair care line, Blake Brown, saw retail sales drop by 56 to 78%. She says she received threats. Her family received threats. So that's Lively's version. Now, Justin Baldoni's version. From his complaint filed January 16, 2025, quote, according to this document, Lively, according to him, was the one who seized control from the very beginning of this film. He claimed that she insisted on choosing her own wardrobe, sending her hundreds of images to the costume designer, forcing them to reshop her entire wardrobe, far exceeding the budget. He claimed she rewrote scenes daily, including the pivotal rooftop scene. When he gave what he considered mild pushback, according to his complaint, she went silent for days, according to him. And then this is big. He claims that Blake Lively summoned him to her New York penthouse. And according to the document, this is when her husband, Ryan Reynolds, gets involved, that he allegedly launched into, quote, enthusiastic praise for Lively's version of the scene. Then there was a famous unnamed celebrity friend was also there during the same, essentially, basically Taylor Swift. And Baldoni says he understood the message. Get on board. And according to his complaint, Lively later texted him, calling Reynolds and the celebrity her dragons and wrote, "They also know I'm not always good at making sure I'm seen and utilized for fear of threatening egos or fear of affecting the ease of the process. They don't give a bleep about that." And Baldoni makes the accusation that Lively also falsely accused him of fat shaming her, which he denies. According to his complaint, she gave him an ultimatum, 2 weeks to recast her or else, and he understood that as a threat to his reputation. And essentially, he makes the argument that she was pressuring him throughout this and that he was feeling threatened. And due to the power dynamic, because she's a big star, that was what happened. Now, according to Baldoni's filing, the 17-point document that Lively apparently sent before returning to production, he says it was full of false insinuations, that an intimacy coordinator was already in place, that Lively herself refused to meet with that coordinator. He claims she regularly invited him and Heath into her trailer while breastfeeding or pumping, and now claiming that those same visits were some form of harassment. He describes the January 4th, 2024 meeting very differently. According to his complaint, Reynolds, quote, launched into an aggressive tirade, berating Baldoni in what Baldoni later described as a traumatic encounter. He says the producer, with 40 years of experience, had never seen anyone speak to someone like that. The Sony representative later said her only regret was not intervening to stop Ryan Reynolds. And as for the smear campaign, Baldoni admits, yes, he hired crisis PR, but he says it was on the defensive, not the offensive. According to his complaint, Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, was the one planning negative stories, not him. And he claims the text messages that Lively used were doctored. Specifically, the exchange where Abel texted Nathan, "You really outdid yourself with this piece," followed by Nathan saying, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." According to Baldoni's complaint, that was sarcasm. He says Lively's team removed a key emoji, the upside down face, and omitted the message where Nathan said, "Damn, this is not fair because it's also not me." So according to his complaint, Lively and Reynolds then demanded that he and Wayfair issue a public apology, taking the blame for her marketing backlash, because there was the allegation that she seemed tone deaf about the themes of the movie, but the counterargument was that was just what she was instructed to do. And bottom line is when they refused, he says the gloves came off. Oh, and then the Taylor Swift of it all, I mentioned that famous friend. Now, she wasn't deposed in this case. She wasn't on the witness list, but by all accounts, she was going to come up during the course of this trial because Baldoni made the claim that Lively used Taylor Swift, her power, her fame, as leverage to pressure Baldoni, as the two women were at one time very good friends, and that she had a conversation or was there with Baldoni. And during the course of discovery, there were text message conversations that came up, like this one, quote, "If Justin was strategic, he would be like, no Taylor Swift in the trailer," meaning her song, "because that gives you more power over the film. That's your ally, not his." Lively seemingly responds, "Get yourself a best friend who thinks like the actual Roman Empire." And Swift apparently replies, "His misogyny runs so deep, he thinks women are incapable of winning chess matches or making long game power plays." So those are the two versions, essentially. There's a lot more, but I could go 2 hours on this. We've done a lot of sidebars on the back and forth, too, if you want to check them out. But for nearly 2 years, those dueling narratives lived in court filings, leaked to the press, dissected on social media. What do we actually know? What did the evidence show? Why did a case that seemed headed for a massive public trial end this way? Okay, so I want to understand this more, and I want to go to somebody who has handled these types of cases before. I'm joined by LA attorney, former prosecutor, Nima Rahmani. Nima, always good to have you. Okay, so why do you think they settled? Why did they settle now? Because there was a narrative for a long time, and yes, the situation has changed, but there was a narrative for a long time. They got to take this to trial. They got to present the evidence. They got to take the stand. They got to tell their sides of the story. They got to reverse the narratives, whatever been put out there. Trial's going to be the place to do it. Not the case.
Jesse, I was one of those people who originally thought this case would go all the way to trial, but I changed my tune just a few weeks ago, and this is why. The reason I thought the case would go to trial is the parties absolutely despise one another. And this isn't about making money for Blake Lively. Ryan Reynolds sold Mint Mobile for $1 billion. This is about sending a message, clearing one's name in Hollywood. It's essentially a Johnny Depp, Amber Heard type case. But with the court's rulings, there was really nothing really of substance left in terms of the claims. Obviously, the first hammer to fall was Justin Baldoni's defamation claims being dismissed on First Amendment and litigation privilege grounds. But when several weeks ago, Blake Lively's sexual harassment claims were dismissed because she was an independent contractor and not an employee. And we're going to trial just on some retaliation, breach of contract, smear campaign type claims. There's just nothing left, not enough meat on the bone to make it worthwhile to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and weeks to go through a full-blown jury trial.
And to be clear, what would have been left over at that trial wouldn't have necessarily included everything we've seen for the last 2 years, all the text messages, all the allegations. It would have been more limited, right, in terms of what the trial would have looked like?
That's absolutely right. So some of that salacious evidence, the voice note, the balcony scene, the text messages, they're not relevant to the claims that were left. Lively's strongest claims, at least in terms of exposure, were those sexual harassment, retaliation, hostile work environment, gender discrimination claims. That was the juiciest, the sexiest, but also the most valuable. And the issue is this: if you're an independent contractor, you don't have those rights. You do as an employee. So, I mean, an example I'll give is, obviously, I love being on your show. I love being on Law and Crime. I'm not getting paid, obviously, but even if I was, I'm an independent contractor. So if you say vile, racist, sexist things to me, which you would never do, it's not protected. I can't sue you for it. So because the bulk of Lively's serious claims are gone, there's really nothing left. And I said, when those claims were dismissed, that this case would likely settle.
Clearly, you're not getting the suitcases of money I keep sending to your office, so you might have to check with your staff about that. Disappointing, to say the least. You're not an easy find. You're not easy to get on. Okay, so let me ask you this. I also think this case is different than Johnny Depp and Amber Heard because everything came out. Like, if this is a case that you weren't only going to fight in the court of law, but the court of public opinion, there was only so much a jury verdict would get you, right? I mean, half this battle, we already saw the text messages, the videos, the audio, that it made me wonder, in the court of public opinion, I think that's also a reason why this settled, and it makes me wonder at the end of the day, right now, who won? Who won?
I would say that they both lost, but I think Justin Baldoni made a comeback. And you're absolutely right. This was never about the courtroom. This was about the court of public opinion. When you have the publicist being sued and being dragged into the case. And listen, I'm sitting here in LA. I go after and sue a lot of celebrities. I've represented celebrities. So this is part of the game. I got publicists here in my studio that I'm sitting in, and I have external publicists as well. So you have to put pressure on the other side. I think Lively really underestimated Baldoni's resolve. I think she thought that if she filed her complaint with the California Civil Rights Department and then the New York Times, when they published that hit piece, Baldoni was dropped by his agents, William Morris Agency. He had his Women's Advocacy Award rescinded. Obviously, Lively is better funded and stronger in terms of her position and financial resources. The fact that Baldoni came back and really changed the narrative, and I'm telling you, I bet you the majority of people in the comments, Jesse, are Team Baldoni. I think his team did a masterful job in terms of their filings and in terms of how they handled both the traditional media and the new media and social media to show that he wasn't necessarily the harasser or the creep that Lively painted him out to be. And I think Lively came out looking really not likable, but I think they both dragged one another through the mud, and there's really no clear winners here.
I thought the joint statement was interesting because in a way it acknowledged Lively's claims, it acknowledged what she claimed she went through, and it also didn't suggest nothing happened on set. There are these references to improprieties and talking about problems on set and the challenges. What did you make of that joint statement? What did it tell you?
Well, it told me, look, and a lot of people who are watching are saying that Lively dropped the case. Well, that's not what happened. The claims that were remaining were Lively's. So Baldoni did have some exposure. I don't think it was hundreds of millions of dollars of exposure, but look, at a minimum, there's the cost of defense, right? Weeks of his time, minimum hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more, to push this case all the way through trial. So Lively still had some leverage, not certainly the leverage that she had when she initially filed. So to get him to acknowledge something was, I think, important to her because, like you said, this is really about the court of public opinion and getting Baldoni to pay something. Obviously, we have no idea what it was, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some modest sum.
Well, actually, it's funny you say that. So Page Six came out and said Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni each earned no money in their lawsuit settlement. Now, I don't know how they would know that, because isn't that the terms of that confidential and not public? But you tell me how that would make sense.
Well, then, if they earned no money and all Blake Lively got was this sort of joint statement and concession, this is a big win for Justin Baldoni, and I would say a pretty significant loss for Blake Lively. I mean, reportedly, she spent millions of dollars on this case. I wouldn't be surprised if it even went into the 8 figures, $10 million plus. And all you got was this joint statement. If what Page Six is reporting is true, and look, Page Six is great. I talked to him yesterday about this case. I'm not denying it. Then huge win for Justin Baldoni and his fans.
So let me also lay this out a little bit too. Brian Friedman, who we've talked about before, an attorney for Baldoni, spoke to NBC News, said his client is feeling pretty good about the settlement, added there was a willingness to get the case resolved given the opportunity and the position the case was set. And so, you know, when we were presented with an opportunity, we took that opportunity. He added, I think he absolutely wants a chance to tell his story. And I'm sure one day, maybe sooner than later, he'll tell his story and we'll get to hear his story. But you know, when presented with an opportunity that you don't have to tell your story in front of, in front of jurors and other people in a courtroom, and you actually have the time and the ability to tell the full and complete narrative of what you've experienced, I think that's what he really wants, and I'm excited for him to be able to have that opportunity. And he also said the reason this case was fought so hard was because of the sexual harassment claims. And so when summary judgment happened and all of those claims, 10 or 13 claims, were thrown out, I think that changed the nature of the case and the nature of what it was about and the effect of it, which is what you just said. But talk to me about this idea of, like, would you advise Justin Baldoni to come out and do an interview? I can imagine a lot of people would be interested in that interview. Legally speaking, could that put him in jeopardy?
It could potentially, but I think Lively has learned her lesson. I don't think she's going to go after him again. And obviously, we know how important the perception is here in Hollywood. So I think he absolutely will. He has always sort of prided himself as someone who was on the side of women and women's rights. So to change that narrative, I think, is important. So I think absolutely. I don't think Friedman would have said that unless that's already in the works. And he can say with a straight face, again, if the reporting is true, that I didn't pay Blake Lively a dime. She dismissed her case. This was a mutual walkaway. And it's just that simple. So there's no reason why he shouldn't move forward with an interview like that, in my opinion, because there's tremendous value to him and his brand. And I think maybe a lot of people that didn't know Justin Baldoni now know who he is. So again, where he was to where he is now is really nothing short of extraordinary, if indeed it was a mutual walkaway and he didn't pay Blake Lively a dollar.
What do you think the trial would have looked like? I mean, again, it was very limited. It was Blake Lively against his production company, not even against the two of them, if I understand it correctly. What do you think the trial would have looked like? What do you think the evidence would have been? What do you think the verdict would have been?
So it's interesting. If you look at Lively's exhibit list, if you look at her witness list, you would have thought that the trial would go longer than a month. But you know how these federal judges are, right? I mean, they keep it moving fast. So I think Lively's team wanted to tell this sort of story of, manipulation and harassment and her speaking out on behalf of herself and other women. And they wanted to bring all these other women who were on set, who've interacted with Baldoni, to say that he's creepy and this is part of his MO as some sort of, type evidence to show that it was just not limited to her, but he was harassing other victims as well. But I don't think the judge would have had it, Jesse. I think it would have been a fast trial. You get into the breach of contract issues, some retaliation issues. Obviously, some of the publicists would testify, maybe some damages witnesses on, the harm to her from the smear campaign. But it would probably wrap up in a couple of weeks if you were asking me. Certainly a lot less than Lively originally anticipated, because frankly, I don't think the judge would have had it.
And in terms of the effect on Ryan Reynolds or Taylor Swift or any of the other cast members, the kind of ancillary characters to all this, what do you think the effect of it is, of this development, is on them?
Yeah, I think Taylor Swift's probably the the second most happy person that this is going away. The last thing she wants for her brand is to be dragged into it. It seemed like, Lively was trying to leverage. I mean, Lively's famous, but Taylor Swift obviously is on another level to put pressure on Baldoni. And I don't think anyone wants to deal with any lawsuit, but especially celebrities. That's the last thing they want to deal with. So I think Taylor Swift is happy and relieved. She was able to get out of giving a deposition. And I think the fact that she's not going to testify at trial is a big win for her. Ryan Reynolds, I think, was dirtied up somewhat. He was on those text messages. Some of them are pretty offensive. Obviously, look, we know that people talk to their close friends in a certain way, and certainly their spouses in a way that they wouldn't to the general public. But I don't think they necessarily wanted all that dirty laundry aired. And it was in a way that I think was not flattering to both Reynolds and Lively.
To be clear, if somebody's listening to this and thinking about the cases, the claims being dismissed, it wasn't on the merits. Like, for example, we don't know what really happened on that set, do we? Or what happened afterwards, do we? These claims, these cases were dismissed on very specific procedural legal grounds, right? And not necessarily because of the truth or the lack of truth or the credibility of these accusations.
That's absolutely right, Jesse. So for people to say that Lively was harassed or wasn't, we never got to the merits of the case, the substance. This is purely a procedural issue. And I can tell you, but it's the procedural issue in any employment case. Just a couple months ago, me, my law firm, and myself, we went to trial against Kanye West. And really the only issue was our client Kanye West's employee, or was he an independent contractor? That's the whole reason we went to trial. The jurors found in our favor, and they found that Kanye West, now Ye, did employ our client, and they awarded some damages. But had he not been an employee, there was 50 questions on that verdict form, Jesse. Question one was our client Tony Saxon an employee? If the jurors had answered no, they were instructed to skip all the remaining questions, sign and date, because our client would have had absolutely no rights if he were an independent contractor.
That's so interesting. All right. Well, look, this is an end to quite a saga. I still, by the way, believe, and I correct me if I'm wrong, there's still one remaining case. I think the New York Times, still their lawsuit is maybe active. I don't know if you saw something different, but I don't know if that's where that's going to go or how that's going to settle. But it was really mostly between Baldoni and Lively that we were listening to and really trying to focus on. So let's see what happens next. We'll keep in touch about it. I'll send another pot of money your way to always make your appearances on Sidebar. But thank you. Always appreciate it, Nima.
Thank you, Jesse. Love being on always.
That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. See you next time, everybody.
अल्लाह की ज़ात तू ऐ झोरे सदके जेड़ो कुल कायनात चलाण आलो अल्लाह की ज़ात तू झोरे सदके जेड़ो कुल कायनात चलाण आलो हुक्म उस गे बाजना पतर अल्लाह ओ तेरो मेरो वजूद बनाण आलो ते 18,000 मखलूक गो ऐ मालिक सुनो रब सुनो जमीन आसमान आलो अर्श फर्श लो कलम महफूज कुर्सी जिया जून ना रिज़क खिलाण आलो दाल दुखांगी गल सो नौरे तमना एक बच्ची मासूम रोलाओ गई है दाल दुखांगी गल सो नौरे तमना एक बच्ची मासूम रुलाओ गई है ओ उसकी मारे गुलनाज है बहुत दुखिया ये मारा सीना माँ बरछिलाओ गई है नाओ बच्ची गो अफसा में मूद सोनो रोग उमरा गो सुनी लाओ गई है ओ जिला पुणछ गिरा शिंदरा सोनो ऐ दुखिया दिलाना अफजारो लाओ गई है दाल दर्द जो दयागा आई बहुत ओखा है पर बचागी नारे जो दई ओवे दाल दर्द जो दयागा आई बहुत ओखा है पर बचागी नारे जो दई होवे ओ माना सबर करार फिर नहीं रहा तो दख्ते जिगर की जद जो दई होवे बाप उसको मैं मुँह दियो सेन दुखिया अफसा जही बची सिने लाई होवे ओ दुख मुझ जावेद माँ बाप नावे ओ बचा किसे की नारे जो दई होवे तेरे हो रब गा कर तमाम होया 17 अप्रैल ना खुशी भरपूर होई रे हो रब गा कर तमाम होया 17 अप्रैल ना खुशी भरपूर होई ओ अल्लाह पाक ने दिती एक बच्चियों सोनी ऐ गुनाह करांगी अर्ज मंजूर होई दिन माँ दाखिल रही महारात ऐ 10 बजे ऑपरेशन होयो ते टेंशन दूर होई ओ दीती खबर फिर आनी उन डॉक्टरां ने होगी बची पर बड़ी कमजोरी होई सलाह दीती वीर डॉक्टर है कमजोर बची ले गए बीच मशीन रखाओ दीती सलाह दीती डॉक्टर है कमजोर बची ले गए बीच मशीन रखाओ दीती 18-19 तक रखी पुणछ अंदर और पर इकी नर जोरी कराओ दीती ऐ रात 9 बजे मामू ऐ नानी दोए गड्डी तरफ रजोरी चलाओ दीती ओ मासा देरी ना लाई ले चल गया ओ 12 बजे रजोरी पहुंचाओ दीती किसना चैन सकून फिरे आई उस दिन तो रास्ता बिच डाडा परेशान होया आई किसना चैन सकून फिरे आई उस दिन तो रास्ता बिच डाडा परेशान होया रात 12 बजे रजोरी पुजया कि जल्दी डॉक्टरा कोल रवाने होया ऐ डॉक्टर नब्ज तके मुतू कि बोल न सके असली राज तू बे वो हैरान होया ओ अमानत रब की है तम सबर करियो ए आपसा बची गारू वे रवानी होया किसना होश रे ओ सुनी ये खबर जिस दम आया है आप जाए अमना छोड़ गई है ऐ किसना होश रे ओ सुनी ये खबर जिस दम आया है आप जाए अमना छोड़ गई है ये एम्बुलेंस करी वापस पुणच चलना मारी किस्मत अज मुखरे मोड़ गई है आई गुल नाज वाणी अरे ए मान बाकी मेरी खुशी ना किंगा तू रोड़ गई है दाखिल विच अस्पताल थी पुणछ अंदर ये मांगुल नाज गो दिल क्यों तोड़ गई है अप्रैल 22 ना सुबह गए आई 5 बजे वतन शींदरा पुजे आयान सदके अप्रैल 22 ना सुबह गए 5 बजे वतन शींदरा पुजे आयान सदके माना 10 बजे एम्बुलेंस आने तेरा तकन गाया अफजायर मान सदके ते कितना दुख था महंगा ऐ काल जामा जाने वाया रब रहमान सदके और वे बाप महमूद परवेज नानी नाले रोवे सजाद यवान सदके
ते कफन दफन गो वेलो हुणे यार गयो इना दुकाना हुण मीटौरे किसरा कफन दफन गो वेलो हुण हार गयो इना दुकाना हुण मीटौरे किसरा ओ जीता मांगे बचा गो टूर जानो इस शेर बर कलम चनो किसरा ते अच्छा रब वाले हुणे आई छोड़ गई है तीना सिना नाड़ू हुण लो किसरा सबर या तो नी दिल मां याद तेरी रोता दिला ना चुप करूं किसरा फिया मान इना दुखाने हई मुकणो नी 4 बजे रे आपका दफनाओ छोड़ी हई फिया मान इना दुखाने हई मुकणो नी 4 बजे रे आपका दफनाओ छोड़ी वतन पुणच गिरा शिंदराय अंदर ओ सोनी निकी जी कबर बनाओ छोड़ी सबर करियो महमूद गुल नाज दोए मानत रब गी रब ने छुपाओ छोड़ी ओए पिया मान जावे तू इजाजत ले ले जख्म मोड़ी भी क्यों रे दुखाओ छोड़ी